Welcome back. My name is Lucy Czesak, and I'm a reading and writing specialist here at the Academic Success Center at Niagara University. This is a video in the series of Writing Better Research Papers. In this video, we'll talk about how to decipher those journal articles that you worked so hard to gather for your research paper. Okay, so this word deciphering might just be the perfect word for what you'll have to do with these research papers that you have gathered. You might have a big stack of them printed out. You might have them on your digital files. But you've probably noticed by now that they might be written in language which is unfamiliar to you. They might have graphs and charts which are unfamiliar to you. So in this way, you won't just read these, but you're going to try to puzzle them together and decipher them. The great thing is that most research papers that are published and that you'll be getting for your college research are all written in the same format. And once you see that pattern, it's going to be much easier to get through and see, is this the research paper that I need for my thesis? So what I'm going to suggest here is you read your research papers in a specific order. So step 1 will be the abstract. And maybe you've even written an abstract by now for one of your research papers, but of course the ones you've gotten will contain it. It is usually the first thing written, and here you'll learn what the study's about, what they're hoping to find out, a little bit about some of their methods. This will tell you in a general way if this is the paper that will help with your thesis. After you've read the abstract and have a general idea of what the paper's about, I'd like you to actually go all the way to the end of the paper and read the conclusions. It's named various things. They can say conclusion, they could say results, they could say discussion. All these words signal that these is what the paper has, what conclusions they've come to, and this is what you want to read. It will definitely tell you if this paper will help support your thesis or not also. So in this way, with the abstract, you start off with a little synopsis, then you get their conclusions, and now you're ready to find out about what happened in the interim. The next step in deciphering your journal articles will be the literature review, and perhaps by now you have already created one yourself. Every research paper will have one, and it usually happens very near the beginning of the paper. And here's where the authors discuss what other research has been done in this topic, what the outcomes were in those topics, and perhaps some reasoning of why they decided to create their research based on what has been done before. This is an extremely important part to read. It will also give you some additional sources for your research paper if you are short on them. So definitely skim through that and see if you can find some gold in there for sure. Okay, so we're here at step 4 and step 5 in your deciphering. So now is a great time in step 4 to go ahead and give it a read. And my suggestion is go light on the highlighting. Highlight just the main points, because you'll be reading this article 2 or 3 or 4 times more before you're done with it. And if you just highlight the main points, it'll make that read go much quicker, and you can zero in on where you want to focus, and then you can dig deep around that highlight instead of being overwhelmed by so many things that you've highlighted. I know that's different from what you've probably done in the past with textbooks, but this is what I recommend for getting through these papers efficiently. Another great step here is my step 5, and this is a double entry journal. You've probably done various forms of these throughout your schooling, but this is definitely a good addition to do as you're doing the highlights. And in my next slide, I'll show you what that means. Okay, here's just a little sample about what the double entry journal can do to help organize the research as you're reading with your highlighting. Over on this left side of the journal, you can put down your quote, your main point, those type of things. And then over on the right side is your comments. This is important. You need to record your thoughts. Those are your breadcrumbs to lead you back to what you were thinking originally. When you have so many research papers to read over, you may not remember all of your original thoughts, and you need to capture those. So for instance, over on this left side, I have just a small quote from President Roosevelt in 1933, where he famously said, "The only thing we have to fear is fear itself." I think we've probably all remember that one. But what I want to do is give you a little example of what maybe my thoughts would be that I would write down for that if I was writing on this topic. I would want to remind myself that I'd have to set the historical context for the quote. I'd also want to make sure that I remembered to say how this is validating the feelings of the American people during the Great Depression. And I would know what that means because it was my quote, right? I'd also want to remember, oh, this is, the American people had a lot of distrust of government because of the Great Depression. And then finally, down here in this last comment that I've made is I've said use it in your intro or first body. So what I'm doing here is giving myself breadcrumbs to remember, oh yeah, I wanted to use that maybe in the intro or first body. Now that may not happen. It maybe could be, the end or the body, but still, this gives me just a little bit of breadcrumbs to remember how this quote might be effective for my paper. So yours will look different depending on your quotes, but hopefully this gives you an idea of what I mean. Okay, so these 4 questions are an important element to deciphering your research articles. And these are fundamental. If you can answer these 4 questions, you really will have a good hold on what the whole paper means. And then in that way, have great research to put into your own papers. So let's look at this first one. Is the study attempting to create new knowledge? So for instance, when you read the literature review, you'll get some clues if they are trying to do something new or if they're imitating something that has been done before. This is important if this is something entirely new that's going on or just part of a canon of research. The next question, is the study attempting to fill a knowledge deficit? Again, when you read the literature review, they'll say, this study was great, but it left out this part or so on. You'll want to know this. This will definitely help with your research. You'll have to know that one. Okay, the next one you'll need to answer is, what is the scientific approach? This is pretty fundamental, and many times it'll even be labeled that scientific approach or something like that, or methods used. So you'll want to know very fundamentally, is it qualitative? Meaning, did it happen through interviews and observations? Or was it quantitative, meaning, okay, are there numbers involved and stats and graphs and those type of things? Or maybe it was a mix of both, but you'll need to know. And finally, this last question, does the author acknowledge the limitations of the study? Every study will have limitations. And obviously, when you read the literature review, they talked about some of those limitations of those other studies. This will usually happen at the end, and many times it'll be labeled as suggestions for further research. This is a wonderful place to read because it tells you how far they felt their study got and what they're hoping other scientists might do in the future to further the study. So if you can answer these 4 questions, you'll have a really good grip on what's going on. You might even want to print this out and have it next to you as you're writing, just to remind you of what you need to know. Okay, finally, I've given you a paper way to organize your research through the double entry journal. You're doing some highlights on paper. Many of you are, though, really happy with the digital realm. So if that's who you are, then what I did is I found you some organization resources that are pretty popular with researchers, people getting their PhDs, upperclassmen. So here are 4 that I found for you. We have Pearl Trees, we have Papaly, Zotero, and Mendeley. All of these have a free version, and what they do is you can organize all of your citations, where they came from, the main points, the main conclusions. It just sort of collates them all together. I have not used these yet, but I certainly will in the future, and see what it's all about. So please look it up. I'm sure there's other great videos to show you how to use these if you would like to digitally organize your resources. As you can tell, organizing is fundamental to writing a quality research paper. I want to thank you for watching this video today and figuring out how to decipher those journal articles. Again, my name is Lucy Czesak. I'm here at the Academic Success Center, and you can take a screenshot of this. It tells you how to make an appointment at the Writing Center if you'd like. We're always happy to help you. Small, medium, or big questions, that's what we're here for. And so look us up. We'd be happy to help you. Thanks so much.